Hi, this is Parshat Vaetchanan, and it's really a two-part series. The first one is entitled, Even While Facing Death. Moshe teaches us how to pray for life. And of course, this is all about Moshe and his prayer, trying to get into Eretz Yisrael. And we know Moshe has been very effective in his prayer. After all, think of the famous prayers when the Chet Egel, Loma Yomru, Mitzrayim Lemor, Barot Tziyam Laragotam, Lekalotam Yal Pnei Adamah, right? By reminding God about the Chilul Hashem, if they're destroyed, he was able to reverse that decree. And with the Chet Maraglim, V'tiyu Chalot Laviat Ha'am Hazeh El Eretz Asher Nishba Lahem V'yishchatam B'midbar. Again, people will think that you didn't have the ability to bring the Jewish people into Israel. That's why you slaughtered them. So it was very effective. Of course, it doesn't mean that Moshe is pointing out to God something that God didn't think of. Rather, Moshe is just using the principle of Chilul Hashem, which is very powerful and prominent in the way God runs the world. And although sometimes God allows a Chilul Hashem, like the destruction of Beit HaMikdash or the Holocaust, in any case, it could just be a test for Moshe's leadership ability, whether even though the Jewish people have derailed this beautiful dream of leaving Egypt and marching into Eretz Yisrael and setting up the Beit HaMikdash. Twice it was derailed. Will Moshe give up on them or not? And of course, he does not give up on them. But it didn't work this time. Moshe tried to say, hey, if I get the same punishment as the 10 spies who are now allowed to go into Eretz Yisrael, people will say that I did the same sin as them. And people will question, God's justice. In fact, Moshe actually, quotes from Eov and from Kohelet, Tam v'rasha hu mekaleh. And in Kohelet, Mikra chad tzaddik v'l'rasha. God, people are going to see a moral failing in how unfair it was. But God does not accept this argument, and Moshe then sort of concedes, and perhaps he agrees that, maybe it's all an illusion. He quotes again from Kohelet, Ki lo lakalim hamerotz v'lo legebarim ha-milchama, meaning the race is not won by the swift, nor the battle by the valiant, nor bread won by the wise. In other words, just because you have all these talents doesn't mean that you're guaranteed anything. In fact, very dramatic in the Midrash, when God asks, the famous Moshe asked God to Hareini na et kvodecha, show me the ways how you run the world. So God says something amazing, which is an approach to davening, which I urge you all to try at home. The famous line, V'chanosi et asher achin, v'rechimanti et asher achem. So the Midrash rephrases that as, Lo shani chayav lecho birya klum, el chinam ani noten lechem. I don't owe you anything, God says. This is not an exchange of goods and services where you rack up points and then you redeem the points and God gives you. He checks your figures and goes to the warehouse and says, oh, I see, it's time to get this or that. No, even Hashem, bechinam, that's what the word Vaetchanan, this whole parsha is about, giving this insight into davening that Hashem does it bechinam. Hashem does it out of his own goodness in sort of free will. Hashem isn't obliged to give us anything. It's a very freeing concept in davening, so that you don't come to God and say, look what you owe me. Rather, you don't owe me anything. I'm just giving you reasons why you should please consider my prayer. And it's funny because according to the Midrash, God, when Moshe hears that, he says, God, please do a mitzvah and let me go into Eretz Yisrael. It's funny they use the word mitzvah, which you'd think is from the word mitzaveh, that someone is commanded, because no one commands God to do anything. That's exactly the point. It's a mitzvah. It's sort of like a mitzvah for God, because no one is telling God what to do. God is just doing out of the generosity of his heart. And so here you see, again, Even while facing death, Moshe is teaching us how to pray, and very important lessons there. Have a great Shabbos.